So, right off the jump, for those of you who don't know, FD Signifier is in the building. Phenomenal YouTube essayist.
Long videos.
Well, there's short ones too. You did a 14-minute video on the previous round, the previous bout that just took place last night.
Yeah, and it's already out of date. Like it's already
it's a glorious time, I feel like, for music, for culture.
And for Drake haters.
Haters, yes, exactly. Which there are many of them. I did not realize it was like that. I thought that this was like.
So the best way I could, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to actually, I'm not going to evoke certain energy. But I'll just say there's an old guard and a young guard that has despised Drake pretty much since his inception. They hate what Drake stands for in hip hop. And I've always believed that Kendrick felt just like I did. And now I'm confident in it. I made 2 years ago now, an hour and 20-minute long video about it. And I've made, I guess, a couple more videos kind of as addendum. And it's hard to even explain without, I can't think of a good way of, like, just imagine a subculture, right? With a relatively rigid traditions and mores and standards that everybody had to kind of hold up to an extent. Not perfect. A lot of critique to be made about hip hop and music industry, etc. But there were standards. And then Drake came and broke all those standards. And once upon a time, that just meant you had to be like Flo Rida or something, Jason Derulo. You know what I mean? You could do a rap thing, but you were not like over here with us. But Drake was so good and made so much money that he was pulled in with everything else eventually. And then nobody could say shit because he was now the #1 rapper in the game. And I guess last year was a relatively rough year critically for him. And then Kendrick has always been a rival. And from what I can glean from Kendrick's music and his like persona, which is relatively little because he doesn't talk much, he's been waiting for this moment. It's very clear that this was highly anticipated on his end.
Oh yeah, definitely. So last bout, obviously, like I've talked about this so much over the course of the past, I would say longer than 24 hours, but some of the things I wanted to run by you specifically, to clear up miscommunication. As you know, I have a very Caucasian audience. And one thing that I wanted to broach, one thing that I wanted to talk about that I mentioned to them as well is that, like, two things. One, Kendrick Lamar is not talking about Drake being biracial, but instead being more so a culture vulture. And yes. I think that this last song, have you listened to Not Like Us yet, by the way?
Oh yeah, like 12 times already.
Okay, yes,
it's a jam, and it's much easier to listen to than last night's harmful therapy section.
Last night's drop, Meet the Grams, was like, it had like too much of a ominous energy associated with it. So it was great that Kendrick Lamar also then was like, almost felt like he was talking to the, it almost felt like he was saying like to the Drake writers that, you know, he can make a club hit as well. Like he can make a song that's uplifting.
He dropped it just in time to make sure people would listen to it on their way to the club tonight.
Yeah,
like to ensure that this would get a extreme rollout and become a historical jam that people would dance. This is the first real, even though like technically this is a back to back, whatever. Technically this is that, but this is the first real back to back. If you're going to compare it to Drake's record back to back, because really, if you go back to that record, it's not as legendary of a diss track for its actual content. It's more so because it was just such a banger that you could play it at a club and it would set the party off, you know. But to answer, to address that, so that discourse, you know, went left, and it's, you know, you should really watch, or, you know, plug in. I did an Ole and Friends with Ole, and a couple of other creators, like 2 days ago, and it's already out of date. About this whole thing. And what we talked about was that Drake has a really unique arc in his fandom. He starts out pretty openly pandering to black women, right?
Yes.
Pretty, you know, I won't say shamelessly, because it was still soft boy misogyny. I was never mad at him pandering and like being like more half an R&B artist, etc. But like he was definitely seen as a guy who, you know, made music that black women could appreciate genuinely. You know what I'm saying? Because there's like a culture of we're gonna make music for the ladies, but it's still not really for the ladies. Whereas Drake, he genuinely seemed to get what women wanted to hear in his music, right?
Yeah.
And then after the Meek Mill beef, there's a hard shift in his tone and persona as he more and more starts getting into this like edgy boy meme lord persona. And that's where we see the more weird, you know, outfits and hairstyles. And he starts, you know, collaborating with academics and, you know, like legit, that's what it is. And he starts memeing all the time. And then he starts to get into, so he's starting to get into like the type of fan culture that you would see for like an Elon Musk or, you know, Kanye, right?
Yeah.
But for him, it's very deliberate, and he's cultivating it like very purposefully, that type of energy and atmosphere. Because one thing I'll give Drake is that he has an amazing foresight in what's going to be significant in pop culture. Like he gets called he's called a clout chaser, but it's honestly not super fair, because by the time you're aware that a wave or like a big movement is happening in hip hop, he's already there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like grime, like UK drill, like all of this stuff. One could make the argument that it was already popping, but it was never like he would be the force that would mainstream it even way further.
Right.
But he definitely still, in my opinion, was obviously like he did with dancehall.
Right.
Like he would just like pick and choose. He would be like, okay, I'm this now. I'm gonna do this now. I'm gonna tackle this, and it was in a weird way.
Is the thing?
Yeah, it was very exploitative. It wasn't like in an appreciative manner. And I think that same exact underlying philosophy is represented with even OVO as a label, with many of the young artists that he like brought under his wing, only to just like squander their talent and only to basically just keep them from shining.
To be fair to Drake, that is like a tradition in hip hop. Yeah, that's literally like
people said that about Kanye too.
Yeah, that's hip hop as a capitalist, you know, microcosm of capitalism. Because most rappers cannot get rich off of being a rapper. The way to get truly rich is to find other rappers to siphon money out of permanently and own their shit. That's why every rapper has a label. Like Drake was signed to Lil Wayne, who was signed to Baby, who was signed to, like, that was what that line was in Euphoria. You know what I'm saying? So it only makes sense that he would repeat the process himself. But so to get back to that thing, all right, so there's a great point that we all kind of congealed together in that Olay conversation, which is the meme lord fan base is obviously predominantly white and completely like detached from hip hop, like as a tradition, and not just the culture, but like the traditions and like the standards, etc.
Is the Ole Miss frat boys doing monkey sounds at the black lady at the pro-Palestinian protest? Like that is
they love Drake.
That is the quintessential Drake audience, the Naperville kids, as I like to call them. Similar structure to like a lot of drill fans as well in general that will love egging on rappers and demanding, like listening to all the DJ Academics drops about Chirac. Right.
Exactly. Which is why DJ Academics probably has as white of a fan base as you do, believe it or not.
Well, he's in the fan base as well. Apparently, he once told me. He said he watches my videos.
yeah. But didn't know you were a socialist, which was really funny.
Yeah, I love that.
And like challenged you. That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Is that like he wanted to caution you. He was like, "Hey, Hassan." Yeah, starting to sound like a socialist, buddy. Yeah. Be careful.
In the process of also defending Tory Lanez against the whole Megan Thee Stallion stuff.
But yeah, so that's where the real culture vulture thing comes from, because what Drake does. So Drake's, like we said, is cynical. There's no real heart in his music. There used to be a little bit, but it really left again after that Meek Mill era. And what he does, because his persona is so like vapid and soulless, it's the perfect invitation for a Naperville boy, where you can come in, you could feel black, you can say the N-word, you can, drink and do drugs and get some girls, and you could feel like, we talked about this before, a big part of, not to get too serious for a second, but a big part of how racism works is also like this explicit consumption of blackness.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword for hip hop. Hip hop only exists at the level it does because white people want to consume it and be subsumed in it. And so Drake did that perfectly, because you can't, like, if you're a Naperville boy, you're not really gonna subsume yourself in DMX, right?
Yeah.
You're not even really going to subsume yourself in the drill too tough. You want to see them do it, but you're not going to put yourself in there because it's a distance. But Drake is like, hey, we're really close. We're really close.
I think because of his background too, like being Canadian and like growing up with a white family, child actor, upper middle class, like all of that.
Well, no, to be fair, like, and I actually want to dispel that, because hip hop has a history of biracial rappers. None of them move like Drake. J. Cole is biracial. J. Cole has a white mother, and nobody talks about J. Cole the way they talk about Drake because of the way Drake behaves and has cultivated his persona and fan base.
I meant like his like socio-political development overall in the environment that he grew up in. I think like almost perfectly mirrors like someone who is not like so far off in their experiences from the average Naperville person that they are like impossible to identify with. And I mean, I would even go so far as to say like maybe even early Kanye West like might have had an impact in a similar capacity, because like his background is also like more affluent than someone like Chief Keef, you know what I mean? Like
definitely
the mother is a college professor, like
I was also a college professor.
Yeah,
for Kanye, we're talking about.
Yeah, so it's like I feel like it makes it more consumable and more identifiable from a parasocial perspective for a lot of white kids, and obviously white kids are the dominant force in all kind of culture consumption, right? Because there's just more white kids than there anyone else. Yeah. So
if you want to make money, you got to sell to you don't necessarily have to sell to the Naperville boys, but maybe they're, bohemian inner city cousins, or they're, Hicktown cousins. You got to get one of them if you want to make the big bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why like that plays a role in like, just like I think Taylor Swift's upbringing, development, her attitude, the way she carries herself and everything she does is like, is wildfire for white women in general and the gays. I feel like Drake also hits that perfect vector for like the broadest subsect of society that is going to be interested in pop culture. Right. And he really leaned into it.
But here's the thing, and here's an important thing. Generally speaking, as a black artist and black artistry in that history, that's not something that will be critiqued heavily, because it's understood if you are black and you're making a thing and you're trying to be successful, at some point you will have to open yourself up to the consumption habits of a white audience. This is something I've talked about a lot personally. I talk about it with other black creators, and it's kind of like a management of what are you comfortable with? How do you feel? There's certain topics I don't talk about. There's certain topics I wish I never talked about, so on and so forth. The critique, though, is especially with hip hop, because hip hop was essentially, well, I'll argue that it was the revolutionary aspect of hip hop died as soon as it became a commercial endeavor, but its inception and its energy and its persona, even if it wasn't valid, was still this revolutionary discourse that emerged out of black and brown struggle. And so it has a tradition, even in its most commercial moments. Even someone like Lil Wayne, who was like a MAGA hat goofball now, had songs criticizing the government, criticizing Hurricane Katrina response by George Bush, etc. And Drake has never even been close to that. We may have 2 or 3 bars in the history of Drake's catalog that have in any way been, I don't know, resistant to the status quo or addressing, you know, Black issues. And so to do that within hip hop is blasphemous. And the fact that he got away with it, to bring it full circle, the fact that he's been the #1 rapper in whatever shape or form for 15 years and has never spoken on Black issues for a lot of Black consumers of hip hop, especially those who are older, who like have a sense of value to those older ways, it's really galling to kind of see. And I think that's also how Kendrick felt. I think that's why Kendrick has now released 4 songs. And at this point, I'm pretty sure we're getting like at least 6. And he hinted in the song it might be 10.
Yeah.
So it's a wild moment, you know?
He's had it loaded up in the chamber for a while, it seems, like sitting in the chamber. Van Lathan had a really interesting take on this that I think you will agree with.
Van Lathan is 50-50. I'm 50-50 with Van Lathan. Well, as you can imagine. Yeah. But he might be right on this one.
I think he's right on this one. And also, I think like I just remember Van because like a bunch of my old coworkers used to work with him at TMZ back when I was at the Young Turks, and he was the first person to call out Kanye. Like pretty much before anybody else. He was like, no, this is like, no, this is unacceptable. This is going really bad. Here it is. He says, Kendrick doesn't just hate Drake. Kendrick legit thinks Drake is the villain of the culture.
This is Van Lathan.
Oh, yeah.
I sent this to you just now.
Oh, you just sent it to me just now? Okay, yeah. Yes. He despises not just Drake, but the idea that Drake exists. Like, Kendrick hates that someone could be Drake. He wants no more Drakes forever.
That is it. That is it. Like, I don't want to do a whole hip hop is dead diatribe. Because hip hop dying isn't Drake's fault individually. Drake is just a symptom of essentially hip hop plus late capitalism. Hip hop plus, you know, technocratic encroachment on everything in our life and art, etc. But he is like the poster child for it. And so the fact that he can exist is to some people an offense on the very concept of what hip hop is and what it's supposed to be. And I know that sounds ridiculous because, you know, hip hop is very much a high art, but also a low art. The history of hip hop is full of a lot of bad shit and a lot of bad people. Kendrick himself has some L's that people are bringing up as he kind of rallies against Drake. You know, that some things come off hypocritical.
Working with Kodak Black and also, the
R. Kelly stuff.
The R. Kelly stuff. Which, so like the R. Kelly stuff, I still like. I get, like, I think it's a cop out. His answer was a cop out in that moment, but like, I feel like what he was saying is like, there's literally songs about pedophilia from active pedophiles who have done pedophilia in their lives that white people love to sing along to, and we cherish like revered musicians, like respected musicians for many, many decades, you know, and wife abusers and whatnot.
Yeah, and that's kind of the other thing is that judging hip hop by that standard is, I'm not going to say inherently anti-Black as to not piss off whatever moderates and normies are going to watch this, but it doesn't make sense in the face of every other form of music and art and entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Like every other form of music and art and entertainment has the same misogynistic subculture, comes from the same corrupt, exploitative industry standards.
No, this is the same exact energy as like Black people have a real problem with homophobia. It's like, have you seen the country? Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like exactly. Singling out Black people as though like it is a Black community exclusive issue, political issue, just like looking at rap music and being like, it promotes really bad things. And has a real, you know, misogyny problem.
As if you got rid of Black art, then we would just have this clean, you know, it's giving Nick Fuentes with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even now, like, you know, Black people are going to lose the election.
It's not as Nick Fuentes, but it's more like there is a subsect of even Black academia that or journalists that like specifically write exactly this for liberals to also feel racially superior, that to give liberals the same permission that, like, maybe in not the same explicit terms that Candace Owens gives like white supremacists, but like there is this idea of like the reinforcing the stereotype, especially of the violent, angry black man. But from the perspective that like liberals, it's also the
same reason why we're still dealing with, you know, black men are going to vote Republican this year again. Like we've dealt with that narrative for every year since Obama. We've dealt with that narrative, and every year it's been proven false. But they still keep bringing it out because it's a hit. It's like pizza to white liberals, you know, for them not to face their own shortcomings, etc.
Yeah, it's like 52% of white women voted for Donald Trump, and like are voting consistently for Donald Trump. The 8% movement is not going to be all too significant in the grand scheme of things. I do think that there is like, I think that the trend line even shifting in any direction is still significant because it shows the inaction from the Democratic Party. Like that's my analysis on it, at least. I think that the Democratic Party's like lack of interest in actually offering black people anything is like causing people to actively move away from the Democratic Party, either completely being disillusioned with the political process entirely, or even move in the other direction as well because of the overarching resentment that they feel. But it's still completely insignificant. It's completely marginal in the grand scheme of things, especially when you look at broader trends. Getting back to Kendrick Lamar.
Indeed.
So the thing I wanted to mention is that as far as like Drake's presentation, like there's a lot of older videos where he like talks about black culture almost as like being repulsed by it, but I don't think that's even what like Kendrick Lamar is showcasing, but instead like how he is a culture vulture or feels insecure about his background, his identity, not because of his white parents, but white parent, but instead about the fact that he was not, like he didn't have the same lived experiences that other people have in the space, and beyond that, he's
very bitter and insecure about it.
Yeah,
which is, go ahead, we'll finish you.
Well, beyond that, he's also like obviously, you know, picking and choosing. He makes a lot of inferences to Dennis and the fact that there's like a mutually beneficial but simultaneously manipulative relationship between him and his dad. His dad came back into his life when he made it big, when he got rich, because he wanted money and fame and clout. I mean, I've seen Dennis a lot out and about when I used to go out in nightclubs in Los Angeles. Like he was always out.
Like, isn't it openly known that he's like extorted him for money, for lack of a better word of putting it?
I think so, yeah. So there's that, and then claiming that like Drake is also like parading him around, just like Pusha T had said, specifically to like solidify his blackness, to prove that he is like, you know, he's a black man, which he of course he is. One aspect of this that I tried to communicate to my Caucasian audience was that I guess the one negative consequence of this beef is that like there's a lot of white people that consume this stuff, myself included, that will not feel comfortable being like, Drake is not black, Drake is a white man. And it's like, and that's not true.
Yeah, that's not true. That's your boy Tariq Nasheed isms. You know, I don't even know if he's on that. I like that actually is a different reactionary. I don't know what to make of that. I've really struggled to try to make sense of that particular movement, because that is completely foreign to me in my entire black.
Dr. Umar disagrees, by the way, for the record.
Right, even Dr. No. Yeah. Dr. Umar would say that Drake is black, and Dr. Umar would not. So me and Dr. Umar agree.
He's the former, and he's my authority on these matters. Like I as Yakub's mistake, I cannot make these claims and assertions, but he has. He says he would say that Drake is black. If you're biracial, you're still black, unless he snatches Drake's melanin for doing something,
which is possible, knowing Dr. Umar. Because what it is that what people don't get and need to get is that blackness is not a biological distinction. It's not a phenotype. It's a social distinction. It's a cultural and ethnic lineage and experience. Right? It's complex because it's a fucking color. You know, I don't know what actual African nation I'm from. I'm sure it's West Africa. I think it's Sierra Leone, but I honestly don't know. I'd have to do some 23andMe shit to figure that out. And that is a large chunk of Black Americans in America, right? And so what Black is becomes this much more complex tapestry of features and engagements and experiences, one of which includes being the Black person apart from Black community. That's still a Black experience. That is, like, in fact, a very significant Black experience, because you're probably, and this is like, people just follow me here for a second. You're more Black, not in terms of like, oh, you know, slang and I don't know, fucking eat certain foods and play basketball.
You're talking to a lot of people in my chat with that, I think, with this analysis.
Yeah. You're more Black isn't necessarily you are more engaged with Black cultural aesthetics and ideology, but you are experiencing what it means to be Black a lot if you are the only Black person in your community. If you are a Drake, where you are going into, I believe Drake did come up in a working class. He was like somewhat connected to a working class Black immigrant community in Canada, but he went to school and then like obviously did Degrassi, so he was very much apart from that aesthetic as well. And then also because Drake was the child of a Black American and not the child of a Black immigrant, that was also going to be a disconnect because he's like double minoritized in that situation. But to finish my point, you can feel, I'm pretty sure J. Cole, well, not J. Cole, I don't know. I can't think of any good examples that are rappers, because most biracial rappers came up within Black communities. But I wouldn't say that Drake's experience is not part of a Black experience. To me, it's very much a Black experience. The problem is that specific Black experience has a high propensity to teach anti-Black sentiments, to ingrain an individual anti-Black sentiments, because everybody Black, including someone like me who had a deep and rich Black cultural experience, we can't not pick up anti-Black tendencies living and growing up in America. That is literally the status quo of our media, our politics, yada yada yada. So there's this almost natural inclination, a phase that a lot of Black people go through, where they try to find a way to distance themselves from Blacks. I'm not Black, I'm OJ is the Jay-Z phrase. And so when you're the only Black person, that's probably intensified because you have and you have a white mama and your Black daddy's not around. So you have literally no one to point to engage you in your Blackness in a positive way. So you're constantly trying to deflect Blackness. And you see that in how Drake talked about Black culture at earlier points in his career. Yeah. And Black people who are from a Black, more communal experience, we have pretty good radar for that shit. Like, we can catch that pretty much immediately when you have like strong anti-Black tendencies. And we say, oh, you one of them. And there's immediate distance, there's immediate pushback, and Drake experienced that. It's
like a survival mechanism that is built around, like, at least what I've seen amongst my Black friends that grow up in overwhelmingly Black communities versus my Black friends that have grown up in like white and even sometimes not even like fully white, but just like still brown and white environments, where being like the only Black person in that environment causes like it's like almost like a survival mechanism. It's a different attitude overall, a different way to represent yourself.
The collective like survival instinct is inclined, sometimes unfairly, to ostracize those individuals who have that stench on them. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, you say the hardy R and you don't realize it. So we kind of see what you're doing.
Talking about Drake?
I didn't. Yeah, we're talking about Drake. And a lot of
I did not know that video existed. It was a shocking video that I saw when he was young.
There's a ton of them. When Drake, the most cringe Drake video. Let's do a quick Drake cringe fest. Go do Drake Sway freestyle. Or not just Drake Blackberry freestyle. Drake Blackberry freestyle. This is when he lost everyone, and he should have never recovered from this.
Is Funk Flex.
Yeah, Funk Flex. Yes, I forgot who the DJ was. Oh my god!
You haven't done it. You be up on it.
So pause. Let me set the stage. Look at him. Look at this fucking dork.
Yeah. Yeah. This is.
Oh my god! You gotta watch when I bounce, or maybe tomorrow. You gotta watch my dork Drake video. But so
is this like the Sprite commercial era where his face opens up?
This is the Sprite.
Yeah.
So Drake, you know, and I have to be complicit in this. I was not always a Drake hater. His first mixtape, So Far Gone, was in that Kanye vein of like, hey, we have this new version of hip hop that's a little less, you know, street, a little more, you know, melodic, a little more vibes, a little more emotionally, you know, engaged, a little less hardcore. So me, I want to be clear and honest that I am not from the hood. People sometimes think that because they're probably racist. But black folks can tell when I talk and the way I talk about certain things. And so, like, there's a generation in the culture of young black men who didn't quite feel as connected to DMX and Tupac as they did to Kanye and initially Drake, right? So Drake has his first mixtape. He's doing his best he can to get seen. He's getting rejected regularly, but Kanye does his first single that they were just playing. What is that fucking called? Baby, I have everything, you know, I have whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah.
And so now he's here. He's here. He's got a hit single. We at least got to let him ride out this hit single and see what happens. He gets invited to Funk Flex. He's
Best I Ever Had is the name of the song.
Best I Ever Had. Thank you. He's well spoken. He's light skinned. He is unoffensively black, which means he's gonna get opportunities because they know that he can cross over like he eventually does. So here he is at Funk Flex, and Funk Flex freestyle is like, at the time especially, that is like a rite of passage for, like, if you want to be an elite rapper and taken seriously in the culture, you come to New York, you get on Funk Flex, and you spit some bars, right? And you can find so many other rappers doing this. J. Cole has a ridiculous, we'll watch his after this to kind of like notice the difference. What he does here is the most cringe thing anybody's ever seen. So just skip ahead. So like, I want to get the beginning. So
and then I'll skip to the
movie. Yeah. In HD. Yeah. Young. What up? 1080p's the film.
What is he doing right now?
DVD
What is he doing?
Monday.
Yeah.
He's got a Blackberry in his hand. What are you doing, Drake?
I'm here, man. I'm ready. I remember listening the last time I listened to one of these.
He's turning up the black set.
You know, the boy said something. He said, Flex, let me touch the city. Let him know where it's at. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Can I do that?
You want to do that?
Can I do that?
Hold up. Turn his mic up a little bit.
Can I do that?
His mic up.
Let's skip ahead like 30 seconds.
Can I do that?
Okay, tell him to,
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Young. I got you. Look. I say, young money to the young boy dying out. You hear me crying out.
What is he
you
doing
see me
in the song? What is he doing wrong?
And if your man get the stunt,
You
and
can
we'll
get
buy
one
him
black
out.
point if you understand what he's doing wrong here.
I mean, I don't know. Is it that he's speaking from his? He's reading from his BlackBerry. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Like,
This is horrifying, and he does it the whole time. Like, go ahead, keep going.
you're not okay.
Cause we be living what these other rappers lying about. Drizzy Drake, what? Funk Flex, Hot 97. I'm so far gone.
Bad still.
Yeah, I'm just getting started. Here we go. Look. Feeling
Keep
good,
going.
feeling great. How you though? Bet you hear my name every single place that you go.
He does not put the BlackBerry down.
Wait, what is it? I feel like this is where it gets real bad. Right here,
It's the
then.
in your face, all offensive on purpose flow. My city never effing need me. Yeah, oh wait, no, they really need me. Oh wait, hold up, young effing Wheezy. Holla at me when you done effing Wheezy. Yeah, okay, it's young.
Oh my God! Wait, didn't he literally?
Oh, shit.
Oh, what the fuck? He did actually
Holy
fuck
shit.
Lil Wayne's girl. That's crazy.
Wow, that's some deep lore.
I know. Which
That we
Kendrick
just
addressed.
unearthed
Kendrick brought up
just
in
now.
the.
Because I didn't know that was there. It looks like some other people did because that has like a high replay there. So I guess that was something that people in the know remembered hearing. Oh God. And we haven't even gotten to him the person. And that's the funny thing. I didn't think Drake was like, I had heard and seen all the really creepy shit he did. And giving him the benefit of the doubt, I just figured because he was just like such a cringe lord and a clout chaser that he would text a 15-year-old girl to have a relationship just so she could say his name on a red carpet. You know what I'm saying? Like that is what my perspective was with a lot of his.
Wait, hold up.
Stuff.
Fantano's calling. Do you fuck with Fantano? Do you know him?
Yeah. I've been texting him back and forth this whole time.
Hold on. He's calling me right now. Hold on one second.
Fuck are you, Anthony? Holy shit. What is going on?
That looks scary. I swear
I dressed for his funeral.
That looks scary as hell, dude.
I played the funeral march and then I did an intro and I did a little bit of a eulogy for the boy, and then we played the track, we ran it back, and then I played it a little bit again, gave some thoughts, and now we're here.
Yeah.
I think one of the.
And I'm not putting this on you, Anthony, because I know you're better than me, but I am an OG Drake hater. I'm the anti-academics. I'm an actual academic.
Yeah, no, you've definitely been hating him longer than me.
Yes, and I hit my power for a while because I didn't like the idea of being known as a Drake hater. I had other shit to say and do, but like it's clearly my moment at the moment.
Yeah, so it's your time to shine.
I might as well let it be free. I might as well let it go.
You know, I feel like, and you know, no disrespect to the guy. I love this man with all my heart, but I just find it very funny that you know, in the wider world of YouTube music commentary, when we needed him most, Mike Seatown decided to retire from Dead End Hip Hop. Like, you know, he's an OG Drake hater too, you know, not entirely. He sort of gets, you know, I think he got him kind of early on. But
no, I did too. I was just saying, like, so far gone era, on into, you know, now that was probably it for me. I didn't like the first record too tough. Take Care is like, I understand that to be an amazing R&B, hip hop like moment. I'm not a huge R&B fan. And then after that is my favorite, which is I always forget the name. Never Was the Same. Is that Blue Hair, Blue Clouds?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's my favorite. I think that's everybody's that has good taste favorite. That's not like
it's
an
most people's favorite. My favorite is If You're Reading This Is Too Late. It's my
that was
favorite.
what I was pretty much.
It's kind of tough Drake. It's kind of tough Drake. I do kind of like the tough Drake mixtape.
Yeah, that was it for me. That was when I started being loud and proud with my Drake hate. I was like, all right, he's successful enough.
For me, that was a rare instance of Drake enjoyment. Like up until that point, most people were sort of, I had been classified as a Drake hater pretty early on. Take Care I was underwhelmed by. I didn't even really do a formal review of his first album, I don't think. I think I gave Nothing Was the Same a 5. A lot of his albums kind of range from like 5 and below, 6 and below. You know, honestly, Nevermind has got to be the worst.
As the certified not music listener in this group, I always liked Drake in the sense that, you know, he just makes top 40 hits. And that is
probably why we hated him.
Yeah, exactly. Like for me, I was like, and still am to this day, I'll just be like, yeah, it's Drake. Cool. Like I have no issue whatsoever. I just always personally did not like his behavior in general. I always thought he was corny, but I undeniably was like, yeah, no, he makes top 40 hits. It's great.
You can't take that away from him. Like if Going Home comes on, I'm not turning it off. If I promise you I like more of his songs than I'm letting go on in the moment. I just can't remember yet. Help me out, Anthony. He has good songs.
That's actually a song I will skip. If I hear, and not that I hear it played a lot, but if I hear Hotline Bling, I'm going through that. But if I hear Energy, got a lot of energy, I'm spinning that. Like I'm spinning energy. No, I don't cringe. Don't cringe it. Don't you cringe at me. Don't you cringe at me.
Is that from If You're Reading This Is Too Late?
Yeah, that's also
that was
also, you know, also headlines. You're the best. Also great early Drake hits.
Yes, yes.
Also really great Drake
Energy
hits.
and Started From the Bottom is when I planted my flag. When Drake made Started From the Bottom,
that's when a lot. That's when a lot of people did. That's when a lot. That's when I think a lot of people started to be like, this guy. It started to go beyond, because most Drake hate up until that point was like, Drake's the type of dude to this or that. You know, here's a picture. Here's a picture
officially, of him. This officially feels like a eulogy. I feel like we are eulogizing the death of an artist.
I'm dressed for it. I'm dressed for it.
This is crazy.
So I disagree though. Wait.
Let me just finish that thought. I feel like most Drake hate up until that point was mostly in that range, but like when he started with the Started From the Bottom thing, that's when, in addition to that, there started to grow this narrative of like, he's not portraying himself accurately. Like, he's sort of feeding us a narrative here that's obviously like not true.
Right.
And that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, that's completely true. I want to elaborate on that, but I also don't want to forget what I was about to say, because I think it's actually a more interesting tangent, which is, I don't think this is it for Drake. I think if this L continues to get larger, it will not matter to his core fan base. Drake has all but red pilled himself in the last like 4 or 5 years. Like he is one step away from that, in my opinion. And that type of fan base is immune to taking L's. Like they're immune to it.
Nicki
like
Minaj.
I just finished. Woo, I don't agree with that.
Wait, well, really?
No. I'm just not doing that publicly.
Sorry. Okay, my bad. You're on the broadcast of a certified enemy of the barbs. I can't go to a Sephora ever for the rest of my life. I'm barred. They will kill me.
Shit. Like before I got on, like I'm walking in the house and like I was just scrolling Twitter to see what people are saying, because I didn't get a chance to hear it immediately because I was fucking eating. I was like, it was a dinner date night, and like Tano texts me. I'm like, I'm eating. Holy shit! And I just wanted to go to the bathroom. Like, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom and listen. Instead, I just put the phone in my fucking ear.
You were one of the first people I texted. You were one of the first people I sent a text to.
And so, but I watched Academics, and Academics is not listening to the song, not reacting to the song. He's strategizing for Drake with this
yes.
chat. He's literally strategizing like, what could Drake do?
What's fun? Do you remember this? Do you remember? And I don't know how long you've like been aware of and have been watching Academics.
I am very new to Academics. Thank
you. Me and him, have had exchanges over the years. And one thing that I used to remember about him is very early on, like he was a Drake fan, and very loudly and proudly a Drake fan, which I didn't think anything of. Like, if he likes the guy's music, he likes the guy's music.
It's probably endearing at the time.
Well, the thing is, like, there was a period of time, and I don't know when things shifted, where Drake actually like really kind of kept him at a distance. And if he turned up in like his comments on live or whatever, he'd like chide him a little bit and just kind of be like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, get out of here. So like, go away. But then there became this point where he like openly embraced him, and he sort of like become his little messenger boy, and is like, oh, tell everyone I'm dropping. Get people hyped up. Make sure people are excited for this or that. And it's like, I wonder when that kind of shifted, when Drake realized like, I need to sort of like get, these terminally online streamer guys who are basically going to be loyal to me for clout reasons. I need to just basically embrace them and kind of like, use them as kind of a pipeline for positive sentiment toward me.
It's probably after you're reading, because after you're reading This Is Too Late, Drake stops being a musician and an artist, in my opinion. He still makes music. He still makes good stuff, but he becomes this really almost really very interesting kind of curator of tastes. I was saying this song when I got here, like if you accuse Drake of being like a wave hopper, that's a little unfair, because he's riding the wave in. Like somehow he knows City Girls are about to blow up. Somehow he knows the Migos are about to blow up. Somehow he knows UK drill is about to blow up. You know what I'm saying? Like he just is there for it. And then once it happens, he's already there. It happened with him, And so like, I think because that starts, you know, that starts kind of at the same time as like of the very weird culture wars era of the internet and alt-right and shit is probably where, and then like this exploitative shit that academics did in Chicago. So he probably saw something that told him that academics was going to have a large platform full of rubes that, you know, are just clout demons that will be useful to have to be bots online and on Twitter for his you know, whatever narrative he wants to spin, to constantly you know, give him the benefit of the doubt and to shout down like obvious L's and to say the guy you argue with last night, I think I saw, I can't remember his name.
Los Pollos.
Yes. Oh my God.
Oh yeah,
I didn't watch
Mr. Drake and Drive himself.
Yeah, I've literally not been able to get through like more than 5 minutes of any of those videos.
Yeah, he's a special guy.
Take it. But yeah, so I think that's when the shift happens, when Drake realized there was value to extract. You know, which is why I'm still like, I'm kind of counting Drake out now. I had it in my mind until last night that Drake was going to win this in the court of public opinion. I didn't know how. I didn't think it would be like a valid win, but I had no doubt in my mind that the court of public opinion would view Drake as the winner, just because that's just how these things work, and that's how good Drake is at manufacturing cultural narratives. Now, I don't see how it could be the opposite. It couldn't be the opposite, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, the timing, in my opinion, the delivery mechanism, the fact that he called his shot ahead of time with not one but two diss tracks, and then basically even the expansion of the Maybach gloves all the way to the original like photo, which I feel like is going to expand even further. I don't know what the hell else is going to happen in the album cover. Like the next disc is going to have an even larger cover, I feel like, and then it's going to be, I don't know what the fuck they're going to show, but all of that is very calculated. And he even said that Drake was very predictable ahead of time. So, I mean, it makes you wonder
ruthless. How long I did a community post and I was like, I kind of can't look at Kendrick the same anymore, because this is like anime level villain diabolicalness in terms of like, how long has he had this shit on Drake? He didn't get those. He didn't take that picture in the last 2 weeks.
It had
right?
the Drake writers.
Like he could.
Yeah, it had the Drake writers literally doing Drake-anon. Like they're doing their own version of QAnon, but for Drake. Like, oh, there's actually a secret bait, actually, and like that secret bait is the one who told Kenny to call him a pedophile. Like, yeah, and you know that he has a secret daughter or something.
I'm going to, you know, play a little devil's advocate with the point that you were making earlier in terms of like whether or not Drake is done as a result of all of this. And I feel like Kendrick isn't just attacking him, especially on this new track, in a way that just kind of affects him personally. As he's been going deeper into this, he's been sort of like expanding his focus and sort of making this not just about how Drake is a morally reprehensible person in his own mind. Like he's been using this material to warn people to stay away from him, either because he's just a bad look, he's a danger to minors, or because he's a culture vulture. And I feel like he really kind of rode on that point harder on this track than he has on anyone so far. And I think the reason for that is because this is the catchiest of all the tracks so far. He wants people to be dancing and repeating this track over and over and over and getting that message buried into their heads on this track. And look, I mean, I'll forever never be surprised when it comes to the internet, especially Drake fans, the internet's collective ability to remember shit. Like, you know, shit will happen and then all of a sudden it's in the fucking memory hole and nobody remembers. But Kendrick was mentioning artists by name, one after another, that he personally sees like that Drake got sauce from, you know, and the next artist, be it one of those he mentioned, or especially if it's one from Atlanta, or another one in the future that decides to do the same thing that actually needs the approval of the hip hop community in the way that Drake doesn't. Right. In the way that Drake doesn't, because Drake can do whatever he wants without, you know, without needing to appeal to the hip hop community necessarily. But you know, if artists are crossing over to meet with him and it ends up being a bad look for them afterwards, that could, and look, there's a number of different ways that Drake appeals to people, but that could at least like kneecap him in one way, because I think Kendrick does make an accurate assessment that like part of Drake's lifeblood is his ability to glom on other artists into certain trends. You know, and if through tracks like this, and maybe even further tracks into the future, if he affects Drake's ability to continue doing that, because he sort of robs him of that, because maybe there are less artists who are willing to collaborate, maybe there are less producers who are willing to collaborate because they're afraid of like being associated with him, at least for a time, because it's kind of embarrassing, and Drake can't keep his momentum up on the next record or the record after that or whatever, he could do some long-term damage. It could do some long-term damage.
He's attacking not just his character, but his clout. And Drake's clout has been a key ingredient since nothing was the same as such a cryptic name for an album.
And as he said on, you know, a couple of bars as well, that clout extends outside of music too. He's literally warning LeBron by name, like, stay away, keep the children away.
Keep the children away.
Like, he's like trying to cut off his ability to get eyes and get access to people on all fronts, not even just in music.
Next time he goes to insert team game here and wears their jersey, it's not going to be this type of it's not going to be like the same
celebration.
It's going to be like there he is. Yeah, that's so that, and I think we do have synergy there, because I just have so little hope for how the internet responds and the internet's memory. And I know Drake has an army of literal bots, like legit been exposed, mechanical machine learning entities on Twitter, and then like human versions of the same thing. And also, like, the thing that I've always been fair with Drake is that he is super talented when he wants to be. And that is one question I asked you, Anthony, because like it hit me. Somebody said it hit me. He did 3 albums last year, and you don't remember hardly any of them. And that's like
because I think it's because of his gambling addiction. I have been a long
I didn't even
time.
know about that.
I have been a long time because he's on stake, right? And those guys fucking hate me.
He's a sponsorship with them.
Yeah. So I've been paying attention to the moves that Drake has been making for some time now, and have talked about this extensively, that he got a stake partnership, like a pretty sizable partnership with an online crypto casino. Famously, it used to be very poppin' on this platform on Twitch. And then some people petitioned and advocated to the harms, like talked about the harms that it represents for children, because it's like unrestricted, unregulated crypto gambling. And then because of the actions of some people, I will not mention who those people are, it got kicked off of Twitch, only for them to create Kick, which I'm sure you've heard of, only being mentioned in the worst ways possible online. They created their own website, basically. Drake streams on it. And for some time now, I've always said, like, he's pumping out albums like he has gambling debt. Like, he's doing, have you heard of, like, Bruno Mars apparently, like, has a massive problem and, like, has to perform at MGM, like, almost every night. And he's, like, still, even with the millions of dollars that he's getting, he's just, like, still not able to keep up with his addiction. I feel like Drake is in a similar boat.
I would add to that, and you know, again, I can't speak to any gambling Drake is doing, but like, I mean, I see a bit of a broader, just music-based trend here as well, because you know, the shots that him and Kendrick were kind of throwing at each other back and forth caused me to go back and look at like some of the public postings that there have been for you know, Drake's album deals and his most recent ones, and the way that they're set up. With like, we're talking like multi-$100 million guarantees for like a certain number of albums, like guaranteed. Like just incentive wise, there's no real, like, what I want to say would be like a quality barrier or an expectation of reaching a certain level of quality or accessibility in order to get that money when you hand in the record. Like that's set up in such a way where you can hand in fucking anything. You can hand in a playlist and you get that money. You know, you could hand in a fucking album where you're doing nothing but like just vocally riffing with auto-tune over dance beats for 10, 12, 13 tracks and not even bother to write fucking lyrics for the record. And you get that money. Like that's not set up for artistic quality. That's just basically a money printing machine. You know, you hand in a shit mediocre album and you get the cash. Like that's going to create a wildly inconsistent discography where you're not really putting in the effort behind a record that you might if you knew, like, man, this album's going to make or break me. You know, like the amount of money he's going to make off those albums.
He's going to give us a dark fantasy now.
Right. Like, and that's the thing. Like Kanye's fucking reputation was on the fucking skids after 808s and Heartbreak. Like, as much as people love that record, and you know, it's obviously gained a lot of critical acclaim now, but especially because Drake loves that album, and you know that record's influence is still in his music today. Like, Kanye was on the fucking skids after that record. Like, he had a make or break moment, and that album came out of him as a result. And Drake is just at this point where he's just too big to fail. And again, the record company is just printing him money every single time he hands in a project, regardless of quality. And yeah, you know, it's like, maybe if that combines with some kind of gambling issue and he needs the money sooner rather than later, he's going to just hand in whatever, you know? So yeah, I think when you actually look at the guy's deal, and a lot of artists' deals are kind of set up this way these days, especially if labels think that they can kind of like pull a lot of money out of their pocket long term. However, a lot of these deals, these multi-record deals, you know, and you know, guys like NBA Youngboy have been kind of like muscled into these agreements where they can, you know, it's for a certain amount of albums, but you can only put out so many albums over a certain amount of time, but you got to keep the hype up. So you end up putting out all these mixtapes on the side, and you got to be prolific as possible, and you're on a fucking treadmill to keep up. Like, most of these deals are not as lucrative as the one Drake's been handed. The one Drake has been handed is obviously not going to incentivize him to put out records that are going to last long and that people are going to keep spinning into the future. You know, it just takes up more time. It takes up more resources. And frankly, considering the way things are currently working with Drake and streaming and so on and so forth, it may just be in his best interest that when he comes out with that record every year and a half, every 2 years, that people have mostly forgot the last one so that they're ready to just embrace the new one, you know? So yeah, I think financially he's just pretty much set up to not be making his best work at this point.
It's almost like when you think about the way we think about Drake's albums, I don't think I wouldn't look them up. So the last 4 albums, we got Scorpion in 2018, Certified Lover Boy, Honestly Nevermind, For All the Dogs, and in between that you got, like, I think at least one Future collaborative album and a 21 Savage joint.
The 21 Savage collab.
Yeah.
21 Savage collab. No, so where's the one with Future? What is that one? I don't see that.
What a Time to Be Alive was a little earlier than that.
Was it? Oh yeah, it's 2015. Why do I think that was anyway? But like those albums I just named, that's a steady decline. A precipitous steady decline, even by like normal, like normie Drake fan, not his hardcore stans, but like people that like Drake will probably tell you after Views there's a clear decline in quality, right? And nobody he doesn't kind of get stuck with that narrative, versus you look at a Kendrick and Mr. Morale. I know me and you both love that one. There's a lot of people that don't like it as much. I get why, but like that's looked at as this like huge like blemish on his record because he's only put out major like purposeful projects. Yeah, at least up until now, because I can't wait to see what happens next.
A mid album from Kendrick, or an album that Kendrick drops that not everybody is behind, seems like, you know, a little like almost like a bigger L than it actually is, because you're so used to the high quality level that he drops every time. And you know, I agree with you. I think Mr. Morale is great. I just don't think, like, the way that record is set up, it's obviously not made to appeal super wide commercially in the way that Damn was. You know, and Damn is far from my favorite Kendrick project. It might actually be my least favorite, you know, but that's just my personal preference. Yeah. You know, I still recognize that album serves a certain purpose in his catalog, and it functions, you know, like obviously it's one of his most major commercial successes for a reason.
Yeah. I love Damn. I don't know if it makes sense for me to say I have a least favorite Kendrick album outside of Section 80. Which is like, you know, that's like he even calls it himself a mixtape.
Thank you, Sean the Black, for the raid. Hope you had a good stream, brother.
Fucking Untitled Unmastered.
Yeah. No, I love that one too. But it's funny what you say about Section 80, because like when a lot of people were talking about like, you know, whether or not Kendrick is as good a rapper as Drake, when, you know, like that came out and this whole debate sort of erupted, I was like, did people not remember like XXL freshman like Cypher Kendrick? Do people not remember Rigor Mortis Kendrick? Yeah. Like he was coming out of the gate rapping like he's on fucking fire, you know, like it was life or death.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting, like, to switch out from clowning Drake for a second and eulogizing him. This is a interesting moment for Kendrick, because nobody's ever done anything like this, and I thought that this is a possible outcome. I guess I'd maybe underplayed it because I wouldn't have this is what I would have wanted. Maybe not as much last night's project song. I don't know if I really wanted that, but like him kind of like really like dominating Drake and like doing it through the traditional like planes of hip hop and hip hop like value systems and standards. But if you go back to Kendrick, I remember that XXL freestyle, and I didn't know who he was. I don't remember who else is on that with him, but I remember it getting to him.
You know who else was on it with him? Kendrick. I don't know if I remember all of them. Kendrick, fucking Yellow Wolf. Yellow Wolf was on there. Fucking Lil B. Lil B was on there. And you know what was actually kind of legendary about that freestyle is Lil B actually kind of tried to the point where there was even a shot of there's a classic shot of Kendrick in that cipher where even he's like I've you could tell he heard Lil B before, and when he actually started fucking spitting, he was like kind of surprised that like Lil B was like holding his own in the cipher. It's a hilarious fucking clip.
But it's so clear from that cipher, and this is a theme throughout Kendrick's career, that he wanted to make sure there was no question he was better than everybody else there. Like he wanted it to be blatantly obvious that no one else was competing with him in this rap thing when he got his turn on the cipher. And I remember thinking that. I was like, this dude's way better than any motherfucker I've ever heard in these ciphers. And then, you know, he starts his career with a bang, and then another bang.
And then Sci-Hi the Prince was on that too. Shout out to him.
Oh wow, yeah. We'll come back to that. Well, we're not. I'm about to get off this motherfucker.
Sorry, check.
No, keep going. I gotta pee real quick. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, keep going.
Hurry up, because I was up till fucking 3 last night, and I don't know how y'all do it.
I was until that time too.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. But and then you fast forward to Control, right? So he releases 2 critically acclaimed albums. He takes the crown. It's, you know, but at that time, my argument from my video was that like the crown, he has to like share it. He's like forced to share the crown with Drake. And so Control happens. And this is why initially I didn't think much of this when like that happened. I was like, this was cute, but he's done this before. He wants people to know he's the best. He wants to remind people. He pops up every 6 months on a Baby Keem song or a Taylor Swift song, you know? And like, yeah, that's Kendrick in a nutshell. And so like when he did that on Control, and like, it's not a diss track, it was a challenge that people like came like, you know, it's like, okay, you got a couple, I think you got Big Crit, Lupe, probably some other people who I can't remember. Those are my favorite artists from the.
He mentioned Mac Miller in there too. I think he mentioned ASAP as well.
Yeah, but I think Crit, did Mac Miller respond?
Big Sean gets mentioned too.
Yeah, and so like that is, but I bring Control up because Control is like the same ethos. I don't want anybody to when I'm done being in the spotlight. Kendrick Lamar says, when I'm done being in the spotlight, I don't want there to be any debate on who was the top rapper of my era. Right. And up until last night, he had not really accomplished that. He accomplished that within the realm of like the culture. Nobody that's a true you go on, I don't want to say true hip hop fan because I don't really believe in that term, but like nobody who is in any way connected to a tastemaker or a student or a deep in the culture of hip hop would ever put Drake over Kendrick. But as a whole, this is debatable because Drake is a bigger star and has been a bigger star. So this Machiavellian ruse that he did on Like That has brought us to this moment where he has been able to, as you just pointed out, in numerous ways. That's another thing. We have we have Like That, which is a banger. We get to Euphoria, which is Kendrick in his truest Kendrick bag. Multiple beat switches, 7 different flows, 5 different voices. We get 616, which is another version of Kendrick's bag. Then we get him showing why he's the best writer in the history of hip hop, where he gives us this like horrifying, haunting song that made everybody like the fucking montages of everybody reacting to hearing that song are gonna be with us forever. They're gonna be with us forever. And then he wake up. Then tonight he gives us a club banger. So it's like, no, do not mistake me for anyone else when I'm done, when I'm gone. That is what this is about from a Kendrick perspective. I fucking love it. It makes me happy. And
yeah, I mean, in that respect, in that sense, like Drake, you know, while obviously Kendrick has personal issues with him, simultaneously, and this is sort of like, you know, I think also pretty sad and unfortunate for him. He's almost just kind of filling a void and just serving a purpose. Like, you know, there's a possibility that Kendrick would have acted this way regardless of who that #1 commercial crossover guy was, and was just like, I'm going to basically, you know, build a blueprint. I'm going to build a bomb to destroy this guy to prove that I'm actually #1, regardless of what the numbers say, you know? Yeah.
And it just so happened to be Aubrey Drake Graham. I'm gonna pop out, y'all.
He's a perfect villain though, because he's like in many ways the moral opposite, in at least the way that like Kendrick Lamar carries himself, and the way that he talks about issues. He is like the perfect villain to do it. And I think that he's in a little bit in a way utilizing the hype around Drake as well as the hatred that he has cultivated over the course of his many years in the industry.
He's sending a message to the part of hip hop that Drake brought with him. You know what I'm saying? Like that. It's. I don't even know if it's a middle finger as much as it is a, like, we're setting a new standard. Feel free to like get engaged with it, or like, we don't care. Your opinions are no longer valid. You all had a lot of sway for the last 15 years in what hip hop was and meant. And that time is up as I parade the carcass of your avatar across the internet with five plus 5 more songs of Drake hate. Right. This is the new Kendrick album. It's 15 songs of why Drake sucks. I'm out of here, guys.
All right, thank you, FD, so much for coming on. FD Signifier, everybody. Dude, listen, as a non-music listener, I had to have somebody who actually listens to music come in, you know, and educate the youth,
right,
on what the fuck's going on, because I'm over here. I am only invested in the drama. Like I am not as invested in the music part of this entire process.
Honestly, you're not even alone in that. So, you know, like, is there anything still at this point that you're like curious about, or you sort of like wondering about this whole situation that you feel like
on the drama front? Have you seen like the
drama front, but like, you know, what's the vibe? Why is this happening? Like, you know, or anything. I guess, is there anything that you feel like you're still kind of like wondering about at this point vis-a-vis this whole you know, this whole back and forth?
I wonder how Drake is going to respond to this, if he responds to it at all. I feel like the most Drake thing to do here would be just like try to sue him for libel or something.
Right. You know, the thing is, like, up until this point, Drake has been just a master of controlling the narrative, because historically he's just very good at kind of following trends. He and his team are very online. As I was kind of saying earlier, he's been great about sort of like, you know, keeping guys like DJ Academics like very close to him, so that he can, you know, essentially, you know, use him to sort of like, you know, soften criticism against him. And, you know, he just plays social media channels very well. But I feel like through this, Kendrick Drake. He has not allowed him to control the narrative for like even a second since he released Euphoria. Like since he released Euphoria, the track has gone crazy. The fact that it's not a super accessible track worked almost in his favor, because that caused people to listen to the song over and over and over and over, and that created more discussion around the track. You know, the thing is, while Drake's tracks are catchy and they're very direct and they're very to the point, and I think Push-Ups was a decent response given that he had a lot of people to respond to. Like, people weren't replaying that track in the way that provably they were playing Euphoria, given that it's now currently the #1 hip hop song as far as streams go of the year.
Yeah,
and we're not even at the halfway point of the year yet. And
I think that's a way of out-Draking Drake in a way that actually matters, because like he always has. What does he have?
Really out-Draked him was that the moment that he went to take the narrative back, he just dropped the other track.
Yeah,
he dropped the other track. So he divided focus,
and he's outstreaming him, which I think is like the biggest fuck you, because
biggest embarrassment. The biggest fucking embarrassment,
because he has nothing. If he doesn't have the money, and he doesn't have, which obviously doesn't matter all that much. Like, it will matter if he's like talking to Rick Ross, but I don't think it matters as much when he's talking to Kendrick Lamar. It doesn't hit the same when he's like, "Oh, your house is shitty," right? Like, because he's not a flexer in that regard. So I feel like the one thing that he could say is that as an artist, he's more popular. And right now, that's not the case. So I think that, and the other thing that he could potentially say is, for all of the Drake writers, he makes music specifically as like club hits. He makes top 40 hits that people love to listen to, that people can always listen to over and over again. And his music is not quote unquote boring or whatever. And now with this latest track, Not Like Us, I feel like he also is saying fuck you to that as well. So I don't even know where he can go from here as far as like what else he has in his arsenal. I guess the question I have is about the allegations. I heard you talk to Los Pollos a little bit, and I do agree with you. I think Kendrick has more of a cultural cachet, and therefore like slander against him, if proven true, will hurt more than against Drake, because like everybody knows Drake is corny and people don't give a shit, right? Like, he is more Kendrick Lamar is more like he has designed himself as like as a person that is is flawed as an individual, but like still trying to do good, whereas like nobody gives a shit about Drake being a good person. Like,
yeah, he doesn't sell himself that way.
Yeah, like the fact that he might have a second child is not going to be as harmful to Drake's career as, or even the like, maybe not the pedophilia accusations, but like that he's like weird with minors and weird with teenagers. Like, people have known that for some time now, and yet they don't care. So
right,
this man is like, DJ Academics is showing his email right now on stream. This entire time while you guys were talking, I've been watching DJ Academics. I don't even know. He just is all DoorDash, bro. Hold on, I'm gonna share the screen so you can see it too.
While you're doing that, Kendrick is also kind of like, broadly going after his team as well. Yeah. Mentioning members of his team for sort of like being in on that as well. And, I have no doubt in my mind. I was telling a friend of mine this like earlier today, like, if Drake, and a lot of people have, sort of like cited the fact that like, Drake kind of came out immediately and said, well, actually, I don't have a kid. Which if he does, you would think that would be pretty like easily and quickly disproven. However, like, if I'm Drake, okay, and Drake is a pretty smart guy. If I'm Drake and what happened to me with Pusha T happened, considering the context of what Kendrick said, like, oh, you have a second child who's actually older than the child that we know about.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm Drake, and who knows how many, I'm not going to presume he has a million baby mamas, but if they do exist, and I'm sure he knows that they do, if they do, like, I'm going to them immediately, and I'm NDAing, I am severance packaging, I am golden parachuting to make sure that no information comes out about this. And if you do leak it to anybody, like, obviously, like, you're done. I mean, you know, maybe there could be child support pursuits after that, but given that he officially resides in Canada, I don't know how the hell that could potentially work legally. Either way, I'm immediately going to those people and I'm making sure, using everything in my power, that they don't say anything. Like he'd be foolish not to. So if he does in fact have a kid, that may actually sort of like, you know, play into why he would be as brazen to hop online and say, well, I actually don't have one, because he knows nobody's going to pop out and be like, actually you do. Actually, it's me, it's a child, you know, like, and on top of that,
that was awful. That was an awful way to respond to that, by the way, in my opinion, what Drake did with the Instagram story of like, I'm just laughing, lol, come on. Oh, wow.
And personally, like, I don't necessarily think it's the worst move even for the kid at the end of the day. If Drake did in fact do that, it's maybe even a little admirable on some level, because Adonis, you know, due to the beef with Pusha T, like he really had no choice other than to be in the public eye. Like that kid was literally outed to the world, you know, by the internet in the midst of one of the hottest hip hop beefs, if not the hottest of the 2010s.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And, you know, if Drake did actually do his due diligence and make sure there were better agreements between him and people he did maybe happen to have a child with at some point, it's probably better for their sake that maybe is possibly the case, because you don't want your second child doxxed, you know, or your third or your fourth or whatever. Someone saying Adonis is going to drop the next My Man freestyle. You know, if Drake gets Adonis on the next track, you know, he could get Adonis on the track and be like, actually, I like my dad.
Yeah,
I think my dad's
oh my God,
you know?
that is something he would do. That is actually, you're not wrong. That's literally something he would do. I think. I feel like that's a very Drake thing to do.
It could be a Drake thing to do.
He texted his mom saying Rick Ross is a racist.
Right.
Like that was unimaginably corny. You missed it earlier, but I said Kendrick's gonna get the secret kid on this next one. I don't know about that. That would be ruthless. That would be insane.
That would be like fucking Maury. Like that would be an episode of Jerry Springer. That would be Springer levels of insanity.
I guess anything can happen at this point. He says he has 10 in the chamber, right? Like 10 total, it seems.
He says he has multiple tracks. And, you know, the thing is, like, I think, and I was saying this before I hopped on here, like Kendrick is working at an incredible pace, despite the fact that Drake is supposed to be the one with all the producers, all the collaborators, all the ghostwriters. It's Kendrick who is outwriting and producing more material than Drake is. And I think if Drake came out with a track again, Kendrick would literally just divide and conquer one more time. Even if Drake put out another track on top of that, anticipating Kendrick would slap another card on the table, Kendrick would come back again and divide and conquer twice.
Yeah, there was a couple lines in here that I actually wanted to mention to you that signals that like at least some of this was either written last night or he knew exactly what the lyrics of Drake's last night release was going to be, and he wrote this ahead of time. The homie still doubled down, calling us some slaves. Atlanta was the Mecca, building railroads and trains. That is a direct retaliation to Drake's lines. Drake's actually rather weird and controversial lines that almost doubled down on the statements that Kendrick Lamar was making about Drake having issues with his black identity, where he basically said like, oh, you're rapping like you're freeing slaves, as though, you know, that was, you know, he was just like minimizing Kendrick Lamar's impact in a way that was like, it almost felt like it was written by a white ghostwriter, you know? And he responded to that. So what I want to ask you is, like, do you think he knew that line was already in there?
I've talked about this on stream and pretty much predicted like one of the most obvious things that he could attack Kendrick on, one of the potential sore spots, and I think, you know, this battle is all about sort of like popping the other artist's bubble or ruining the public perception of the other artist, or ruining, you know, how that person looks in the eyes of their audience. And one of the most precious things to Kendrick's public image is that he's progressive, he's woke, he's aware, he's you know, an activist, and you know that's one of the first things you probably want to go after as Drake. You know, it's like he's not as pro-black as he presents himself to be. He's not as you know, socially minded as he pretends to be. I don't know if you know,
he was calling him a fake socialist. He was saying you're a hypocrite. You're rich, but you're a socialist, basically. Like,
yeah, I mean, in a way. And you know, I can't speak necessarily to whether or not he knew the exact line and flipped the exact line over. But like, if I'm Kendrick, it's pretty, you know, it's pretty clear. If I can see and comment beforehand on the likelihood that Drake is going to go after that on some level, Kendrick probably sees it coming too.
I know, but like I said, homie still doubled down calling us some slaves is like a direct reference to something that he like said the night prior. So I feel like,
and this track that Kendrick just came out with, it's not, and this is just my first impressions, I guess. It's not as dense with those double, triple, quadruple entendres as like, you know, Euphoria was. Obviously, it's just trying to be more direct. It's trying to be to the point. It's trying to be really catchy. It's trying to be really snappy. And, you know, it's not the worst for it. It appeals in a different way. So, you know, to me, that's a line that he could probably, given the writing level that we know he could potentially be at when he wants to be, that's a line that for sure he could probably just like bust out in a minute or two and just have it on the track without even really.
And even bringing in the family matter and the truth of the matter in his last line before the bridge, like implying that this was like, I don't know, I guess so you're saying that he wrote it fast, like he wrote it last night and pumped this out.
Yeah, that's not writing that would take him too much time to do. You know, Euphoria, I think took a while because that's a really dense track. Yeah, and he had a lot to say, and he was super careful about like, you know, how he structured it and everything. But simultaneously, here's the thing though. I think he was writing Euphoria, and I think he was writing Message to the Grams at the same time. And I don't think he put out Euphoria without having Message to the Grams ready for whenever Drake would inevitably respond.
I wonder if he has like more in store, like in the same vein of like having double releases or potentially like.
I think he does. I think he's ready for a moment's notice whenever Drake drops his next track. And I don't even know if it's even a guarantee that Drake drops another track at this point. But if he actually does, I think Kendrick's ready to respond immediately. And I think Kendrick's even ready to like throw more shit out there, even if Drake says nothing. I think at this point, Kendrick is going to give Drake the Drake treatment that he was giving him with the Tupac thing. Because obviously Drake, you know, made it a point. You can't really hate on what Kendrick is doing right now because it's not like Drake was sitting there quiet for the response.
Yeah,
you know,
but also
Kendrick was going to respond at some point. It was just going to happen when it happened. But now, like, Drake baited this out of him. Drake asked for this, you know? So, I mean, he's kind of getting what he wanted. He better fucking, you know, is lay in the bed that he made.
The Tupac release was also like, it was a classic Drake mistake, in my opinion. Instead of letting it sit, like trying to egg him on by also opening up a new avenue of attack by like disrespecting a beloved artist and an entire coast of the country, and maybe even like Tupac fans everywhere around and the family of Tupac, only to like reinforce that same dynamic that he's just like kind of a culture vulture. He bought Tupac's ring and he just like carries it around as though they're just like little things that he has bought. You know, I feel like he's doing to himself what Kendrick is also trying to accomplish here as well. Only solidifying Kendrick's position that he is looking at it from the outside and looking at this as simply a commodity to be consumed and something to just like flash around. Very insecure.
Well, he is doing it to himself, and he has been doing it. But, you know, the thing is, like, we haven't really seen... What we're seeing right now come from Kendrick is something that we haven't been witnessing for a handful of reasons. Like, the only people or the only crowd of people that would dare call that out, you know, and have a legitimate grievance with it, are people who, you know, are FD Signifiers age, you know, who are a little bit older than me. And, you know, I mean, we all like FD Signifier, and obviously, you know, his talents and his perceptions, the fact that he's been as successful on YouTube as he has, I mean, it speaks to that. But, you know, that's he's not the type of guy, and he knows this. He's not the type of guy who Drake's core audience is waiting and hanging on, you know, the edge of their seats to hear his opinion on anything. You know, that's not that audience has no crossover with you know, Drake. So, you know, him and people who are older than him and, you know, remember the golden age and the hardcore age of hip hop in the 80s and 90s very vividly, and, you know, remember the core tenets of the genre that made it what it is today. You know, the kids aren't trying to hear that. The kids don't care. You know, they care about the flash, they care about the flexing, they care about the status, they care about the success. They care about all the things that Drake actually makes his songs about.
Yeah, like, materialistic, you know, possessions like that.
Right, exactly. So it's like that's their focus, and that's what they care the most about, you know, and sort of vaguely kind of being in your feels over a girl who ruined your Bahamas trip. Like that's what it's all about. And the thing is, like, you know, younger listeners, even dudes who actually are, you know, younger and maybe more clued in to like Kendrick and more alternative forms of hip hop and more lyrical forms of hip hop, like even a lot of them don't really want to hear some old head railing about Drake. And the thing is, like, a lot of, you know, and beyond that, the only other artists who could potentially take him to task over that are artists that are his contemporaries. And many of them don't really have the wherewithal to do that because, you know, they don't want to risk alienating any potential listeners or any fans by like attacking the big dog, the #1 guy in the genre. And a lot of the younger artists out there aren't going to attack Drake because they depend on him to randomly collaborate with them the moment that they have a hot track or a trending moment that he can kind of hop in and, you know, make a bigger name for himself off of. You know, we haven't been seeing what Kendrick is doing here because there's not a lot of people who have the capability and the will to actually do it. And now he's actually fucking doing it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's actually going to have any long-term impacts and actually give anyone any pause and actually see like a lot of the things that he's attacking Drake for is like corny. I mean, as much as like I agree with and I understand and I take issue with a lot of the same things that Kendrick is bringing up vis-a-vis how he operates within, you know, the music industry. I agree with a lot of his points. Simultaneously, Drake is kind of more of a symptom than he is the problem, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I was just talking earlier about the fact that like this man is getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to just hand in whatever album he feels like, regardless of how good it is. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's going to lead to shit music. And that's why we're getting it. That's why we're getting this vapid, meaningless nothing that is just so non-representative of the genre that it's allegedly supposed to be, you know, that he's allegedly supposed to be the flagship artist for. So, you know, if Drake ends up going away because of this, there just may end up being another Drake that kind of replaces him. You know, just end up being a Drake of a different flavor.
Yeah, I don't think this is gonna like play a pivotal role in changing the course of like hip hop. I think for the average viewer, myself included, from the sidelines, we're, like I said, people are like invested in the drama. Everybody knows Drake, and everybody knows that there's like a lot of sus shit about Drake. So all of that coming in the, you know, all of that being addressed in this way, I think is big. And ultimately, inevitably, I mean, people will look to a response from him, but even if he doesn't, like, he's just going to make another fucking album, you know, a couple months down the line and try to secure as many collaborative projects as possible in that process. Like, he's too big to fail is what I'm saying. Like, people don't just fall apart like that unless they just completely stop making music, in which case their fan base will dwindle a little bit, but like there will still be the diehard riders like Nicki Minaj, as we've talked about before. Like there's always going to be people that will ride for you, like Ye and Nicki Minaj, and Drake will be like that as well, no matter what happens. But I don't even think that it will get to that point, because like he's such a massive commercial success overall that I feel like, yeah, he is like a big bank in a sense. It's just not gonna happen. But overall, I am interested to see where else Kendrick goes with this, and I would like to see more receipts other than just like saying that he's a pedophile over and over again, which I think is very funny.
No, I mean, same. I think this is not, regardless of whether or not Drake responds sooner, later, never. I think Kendrick is not done saying what he's saying, and it sort of seems like he's making bolder accusations, naming more names as he's going along, and I think he's kind of breadcrumbing the process. Like, I knew that with Euphoria he wasn't saying everything that he was going to say, but I didn't think I thought it was going to be Euphoria and then the fucking nuclear option, whatever that is. And I don't even know if there's a nuclear option at this point. I think he's actually I think this process, as of right now, how he's kind of like, slowly kind of stepping it and dragging it out, it's kind of like water torture instead. Yeah. I feel like it's kind of like, leaking another track, leaking another track, leaking another track. And the song appeals in a different way. It has a different bit of information, and everybody's eating up every crumb along the way. And it's just, putting Drake on the defensive.
You got JP fan artists weighing in on the beef. Like, this beef has hit Japanese Twitter. Kendrick probably prepared the track to some extent and invited Drake to Instagram, then ambushed him for an answer. It's hitting Kendrick. Please stop. Drake's life is at 0. It's officially international. My God. The beef has gone worldwide. This is awesome. Anyway, thank you, Anthony, for coming on. This was a phenomenal experience. It got me to listen to music, and I have been nonstop for the past week, as a matter of fact. We'll
convert you yet.
One day I'll be a music listener. A full-blown one. Thank you, Anthony Fantano, The Needle Drop. As you guys know, thank you so much for coming on. Peace.
Bye.